This is just the right moment. You incompetent, you're dismissed. I was momentarily confused by what was being said to me. The manager, who consistently referred to me as worthless, I defended a cleaning lady who was accused of stealing by the manager one day. She would never act in that manner. Have you any evidence? What? Will you trust a dirty cleaning woman more than a representative of our business? This is just the right moment. You incompetent, you're dismissed. I was momentarily confused by what was being said to me. The manager, who consistently referred to me as worthless, I defended a cleaning lady who was accused of stealing by the manager one day. She would never act in that manner. Have you got any evidence? What? Will you trust a dirty cleaning woman more than a representative of our business? No, that's not what I meant. The manager then smiled, drove his face closer, and said something ridiculous. You are also guilty if you are supporting this thief. You are even more stupid than I initially believed. Even though I have always considered you to be incompetent, you are not going to be saved. This is an excellent chance. I'll let the superiors know about this. You've been let go. Please don't come in tomorrow. Fired for this ridiculousness. I gave the manager a fierce look, but he simply strolled off. All right, as you desire. I'm going to leave this awful company, and a major catastrophe occurred on the day I resigned my work. James Wilson is my name. This year, like a typical office worker, I turned 33. As an engineer, I work for a firm that creates computer and smartphone systems. I've never been good at attracting attention or speaking in front of others. I am so anxious when I realize that people are looking at me that I am unable to talk. Nevertheless, I'm skilled at working silently on a computer. As a student, I enjoyed creating basic apps and executing them for the parent firm. I participated in the interview process when I applied for a position at my current employer. I want to buy your skills, that individual remarked. Warm words were said to me. It's okay if you're not good on a big stage. Just put your passion into development. But once I started working there, I came to understand that not every subsidiary employee shares the main company's ideology. Chris, the manager, shouted at me from his desk 5 meters away. James, summarize the data from the project that just came in via email and send it back to the client by noon. Current performance and progress data were sought by the client. Chris was contacted, though, and the deadline was established for this week's end. Is it noon by the end of this week? According to the email, you truly are at. Just because they said by the end of this week, do you really need a whole week? Timely responses are simply polite behavior. I can't recall ever learning such manners. Furthermore, I have essential things to complete right now, so it's not like I have nothing to do. So what? Just finish both by noon. That's impossible. At least let me do it by this afternoon. Are you talking back? Even though you're useless, you can't handle presentations or negotiations. So why don't you try to make up for it in other areas? Seriously, people with no ambition are just. If he's going to say that much, he might as well handle it himself. But while I was thinking that, Chris sent an email saying, James will reply by noon. If he had the time to send that email, he could have handled the task himself. I thought as I hurriedly interrupted my current work to take on the task that Chris was supposed to do. I somehow finished by noon and sent it, but Chris yelled at me. You're late. What good is it sending it at the last minute? No matter what I say, I'll just get yelled at, so I could only give a vague response. I had to do the work that was supposed to be done by the afternoon during my lunch break. While everyone else left their desks, I was glued to my computer. In the afternoon, I received an email back from the client. They thanked us for the quick response and praised the summary, saying it was much clearer than expected and could be used as is. Feeling rewarded for my hard work, I was about to reply, but Chris replied first, taking credit for it. I just rearranged the data we've been compiling regularly, so no need to thank me. I no longer had the energy to protest. I sighed quietly and got back to work. James, about the materials for tomorrow's meeting. In the evening, a colleague spoke to me, making me tense up. Was there a mistake? However, he didn't seem upset or angry. They're really easy to understand. This data usually makes the material so stiff, but when you compile it, it's very concise. Could you teach me how you do it? It took me a moment to realize he was complimenting me. Oh, I see. It's nothing special. I remembered how I put the materials together and shared some tips. My colleague thanked me and whispered something to me. Earlier, the manager emailed your data as if he had made it himself. Right. Yes. Well, I was on the phone with the client about another matter, so I told them that you made it from scratch. What? They said to tell you that you were a great help. Thank you. No problem. I just conveyed the truth. Recognizing my efforts, my heart felt a little lighter. However, those who looked down on me didn't change. James, you won't say anything in the meeting anyway, right? It's a waste of time, so go to the archive and fetch this. The paper Chris handed me was a list of past products. He said there was a file detailing the development history and to bring it back. It's true that I'm not good at speaking in meetings, but I think it's important to listen to everyone's discussions and understand the direction. However, I knew Chris wouldn't care about my opinion, so I obediently went to the archive. I found the file I was looking for and loaded it onto a cart. I was about to return to my desk, but was bothered by the many files stacked up hazardously, some upside down. Since the meeting would take some time, I started organizing a bit when someone came in. Hello, how's it going? She was the woman who started working as our company's dedicated cleaner last month. Her name is Sarah Brown. She appears to be around my age, but it's hard to tell because she ties her long hair carelessly at the back of her head and wears thick lasses. Moreover, her work clothes, long pants and an apron, are unnoticeably dirty. I was surprised to see her suddenly appear since she had signed confidentiality agreements allowing her to access the archive. Oh, are you working? I'm sorry, I'll leave right away. Don't worry about it. Were these files always this neat? Sarah looked around the shelves I had just finished organizing. I'm sorry, I cleaned up without permission. Maybe it was her job, and if she had her own plan, I felt bad. But Sarah's eyes sparkled behind her glasses. This is amazing. When I peeked in earlier, it was a mess, but now it's so tidy. James, you're not just good at your job, but you're so meticulous with cleaning. You knew my name? Of course, I've heard you do very detailed work. It's not that good. Everyone's just being polite. After all, I'm called incompetent. Who would say such a thing? I opened up about Chris's behavior and my own personality that caused it. I didn't even know why I got so nervous, but when many eyes were on me, I got scared. Even though I'd been here for a long time, I still couldn't fit in. It's pathetic, isn't it? Not at all. I'm the same way. What? No, this is about you, James. I'm sorry, but from what I heard this morning, there are people who genuinely need you. I hope so, but I can't help thinking it's just polite talk. People don't ask for advice or bring you up in conversations with clients just out of politeness. At least I wouldn't. Really. Yes, the fact that your reputation has reached me is the best proof. When she said that, I thought maybe it was true. Getting overconfident never leads to anything good, but maybe it's okay to have a little confidence. From that day on, I started talking to Brown more often. Whenever our break times overlapped or we finished overtime at the same time, I had many opportunities to see her. She always cheered me up when I was feeling down. One day, I became curious about Brown's thick glasses. Having good eyesight myself, I've never worn glasses. I had heard that with nearsightedness, the worse your vision, the thicker the lenses. Brown, is your eyesight really bad? What? Oh, you mean these. She took off her glasses, and her face was mostly hidden by her bangs. Yes, I think it's pretty bad. Want to try them on? She handed me her glasses and I held them up in front of my eyes. Whoa! My vision suddenly went out of focus and I felt a bit dizzy. Sorry, that was probably too much for you. Yes, I couldn't see anything at all. I couldn't see anything. Brown repeated my words and then said she had a good idea. If you wear glasses, you won't notice people's stares, right? Because you can't see them. That's true. These glasses are too strong, so they'd be a strain, but you might be able to wear the ones I used to use. The next day, she handed me a pair of glasses she used during her school days. They were brown frames with thin lenses. When I put them on, my vision was blurry, but not to the point of dizziness. If you wear them too long, your eyes might get worse, so use them as a charm when you really need it. I didn't think just blocking my vision would work, but Brown was serious about helping me. It was worth a try. At the next meeting, I had to explain the system I was in charge of. I always got so nervous that I stumbled over my words, and the stares of others made me freeze even more. I usually ended up saying, "I'll send the reference materials and explanations by email later," and Chris would mock me, saying, "Adding more work for yourself. You're truly useless." Today would surely follow the same pattern. I could sense it from everyone's attitude. I put on Brown's glasses. When I looked up, I couldn't see anything. I could feel people's presence, but I had no idea who was where. If I couldn't see them, it was as if they weren't there. It was just like practicing my presentation alone. "This is the prototype created according to the requested concept," I said. I could speak. No words got stuck. Far from being nervous, I was as relaxed as I am when I'm alone. The downside was that I couldn't see my own materials, but I could explain my materials and the system I created without notes. Plus, I couldn't see anyone's reactions, but right now, I was so amazed that I could explain without hesitation that I honestly didn't care about their reactions anyway. I wanted to convey my achievements and my thoughts. I moved my mouth diligently, delivering my words to the unseen audience. I never expected to be applauded. "James, what's going on? You nailed the presentation. You didn't stumble or get stuck. And above all, it was really easy to understand." Of course, James's materials are always clear. So when he explains them himself, it's like adding wings to a tiger. My colleagues were all praising me. I realized the power of the glasses. Just not being able to see made such a difference. It's all about mindset, and the world changes this much. Feeling both surprised and accomplished, I thought I must thank Brown later. I wanted to express my gratitude quickly, so I went to find her. I found Brown cleaning the floor by the supply shelf. "Brown, James, what's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry?" "You were right. Just not being able to see the audience made everything go so smoothly. Thank you so much. I just gave you some advice. The skill was yours all along. If Brown hadn't noticed, nothing would have changed for me. Please let me thank you. It's not such a big deal, but since you insist, I'll take you up on your offer." Well, I sorted the supplies that had been shoved onto me, while Brown cleaned around the supply shelf. Normally, this task would have been accompanied by sighs, but talking with her made the time fly by. Someone was watching us from afar. The next day, when I arrived at the office, I headed toward the center. There was a crowd, and the atmosphere was noisy and unusual. What happened? Maybe a stray cat wandered in. I was thinking this when I saw the center of the commotion, and my blood ran cold. Just confess. We have the evidence. It wasn't me. There was Brown, being confronted by Chris. Her usual friendly smile was gone, and she looked terrified by the situation. What on earth is going on? She's an industrial spy. We found evidence of her deals, stealing company information and passing it to other companies. In her locker, the documents Chris found contained confidential company data. These were found in Brown's locker. This is a mistake. She's being framed. She's not that kind of person. If Brown were an industrial spy, she wouldn't have had time to pay attention to me. And I can't believe someone who has been so supportive of me could do such a thing. You incompetent fool! Are you defending an incompetent cleaner? How touching! A beautiful act of mutual aid among the weak. Chris looked at me with narrowed eyes. Come to think of it, you two have been unusually close, haven't you? Even though this filthy cleaner was only hired recently. That's because she was giving advice on illegal trades. What? What are you talking about? I get it. You're an industrial spy too, and you were giving her instructions to pass on the data. I was too stunned to respond to such an absurd accusation. It's a fact that this cleaner was hiding our internal documents. If you defend her, you're guilty too. No way. Investigate this properly. The evidence is right here. This evidence seems way too convenient. What, are you doubting me? You'd rather believe a filthy cleaner over a company employee? That's absurd. You're definitely her accomplice, aren't you? No matter what I said, he was determined to frame Brown. Say what you want, but she's innocent. I believe in her. Oh, if you're saying that, then you're guilty too. Even someone as incompetent as you understands what that means. Chris grinned as he edged closer to me. James, it's okay. I'll just leave. That's all it takes. Brown looked at me with frightened eyes. Is this really okay? No, this is wrong. I'm not changing my mind. Then Chris said triumphantly, I'll report you two to the higher-ups. James, you're fired. Anyone who defends a spy is an enemy of this company. I was looking out for you, and you repay me like this. You've been useless until the very end. I wanted to say that I never felt he looked out for me, but he didn't care anymore. Even being told I was fired, I strangely didn't feel shocked. I nodded and started packing up my desk. James, is this okay? Brown looked bewildered by my calm demeanor. I nodded without hesitation. Yes, I'm sorry. Because you defended me, you're getting dragged into this. Actually, I'm grateful for the opportunity. I've had enough of working under Chris. I feel relieved. I swear I'm not an industrial spy. I know you didn't do anything wrong. If there's an investigation, unless they find your fingerprints on the so-called evidence, it won't hold up. Brown smiled through her tears, worrying about me. You're too kind, she whispered in my ear. Can I ask for that? Thank you. She smiled at me with an upward glance. Unless there's concrete evidence proving we're industrial spies, I still have the right to use my vacation days. So I was using my accumulated leave. When I received a call from the company, I ignored it, thinking there's nothing left to discuss. Any necessary paperwork could be handled on my last day. A few days later, when I went to the office for my resignation process, I found the place unusually hectic. Did something happen? I asked one of the employees, even though it was no longer my concern. They looked troubled. Actually, do you know if any of the documents you worked on are stored somewhere? What? Chris said who needs spy documents and threw everything out. I see. Are you all right? I noticed dark circles under the employees' eyes. Looking closely, I saw the other employees were in the same state. James, we're so glad you're here. Employees swarmed around me when they noticed I had arrived. I didn't understand what was going on until someone explained the situation. I had often been tasked with creating materials for presentations and meetings, as I couldn't attend them myself. From the systems I developed to team projects, I had created numerous documents. After I left, other employees had to make the materials and present them. However, their materials were unclear, lacked evidence, and didn't highlight key points. They received repeated complaints, lost credibility within weeks, and faced a wave of canceled contracts. The company reportedly lost around 10 billion yen because of this. I couldn't believe it. Even if my materials were good, my colleagues were professionals with longer tenure than me. I couldn't imagine they would produce such poor materials. When I voiced my doubt, everyone hesitated to respond. After a while, someone muttered quietly, "Chris made all the documents in your place, James." What? He was quick to fire me, but the crucial evidence still hadn't surfaced. Of course, it hadn't. Neither Brown nor I were guilty. The executives reprimanded Chris and ordered him to do all my work until it was proven that we were industrial spies. Chris had always pushed the document creation onto me and delegated the presentations to other employees. He just stood in the back giving directions. Since he barely participated in the development, he spent a lot of time making poorly substantiated documents. The current mess is a result of that. Everyone is scrambling to save contracts and clean up the aftermath. James, the shouting voice I hadn't heard in days made the employees around me step back. With dark circles under his eyes like everyone else, Chris stomped over to me. "I called you so many times. Why didn't you answer?" "Well, since I was fired, I figured you didn't need me anymore. Of course, we need you. Read all the documents you've made so far." What is he talking about? I was speechless at his incredibly selfish command. "Chris, you were the one who destroyed them, right? So what? Just make the same ones again. You think someone as incompetent as me can do that?" I emphasized the word incompetent. More and more people were gathering around us. I could feel the weight of everyone's gaze, and cold sweat started to trickle down my back. Even though it wasn't a presentation, the stares felt piercing. Since I wasn't at fault, I considered ignoring him and just saying my goodbyes to the HR department. At that moment, someone pushed past Chris and stepped in front of me. It was the company president. "James, I'm asking you too." The president looked at Chris. "It seems he can't work like you do. Moreover, the suspicion of illegal trading now seems doubtful. Please come back. I know it's presumptuous to ask, but our company needs you." They said something similar during my initial interview, but it turned out to be a lie. "Sorry, but I've already accepted a job offer elsewhere. I'm here today just to complete my resignation process. Even though we're pleading with you, you can still act like that." Ignoring his own actions, Chris tried to pressure me. Just then, a clear, firm voice rang out in the office. "Oh, you can say that after framing him and forcing him to resign." I returned his words to him. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. A beautiful woman with long, glossy hair tucked behind her ears stood there, revealing her elegant features. She wore a gray suit and exuded confidence with her dignified posture. "Who are you?" "Outsiders are not allowed here," Chris snapped at the woman. But the president apologized to her. "Chris, how dare you? She is Vice President Miller." "Vice President Miller?" The office buzzed with whispers. Half of the people seemed to know her, and the other half didn't. "Don't you know? She's the next president of Sakura Systems." Sakura Systems is the name of the parent company. Chris had called such a person an outsider, yet he didn't show any sign of apology. "So, Vice President Miller, what brings you here?" "James will be working for us. His support and technical skills are outstanding." "Yes, my new job was at the parent company." The president and Chris's eyes widened in shock. "That incompetent fool is useless. He can't even present in front of people." "Oh, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. Didn't you know? I want his technical skills. Even if he's not good on stage, he can pour his passion into development." Those were the same words spoken to me during my job interview. She was one of my interviewers. It was only a brief encounter, so I didn't remember her face or name, but she remembered me. "That's not all. He's an industrial spy." "Are you talking about the time you tried to frame me?" At that moment, Vice President Miller put on her glasses and tied her hair back. Chris's voice trembled as he recognized her. "You are?" As always, very good at putting others down, Vice President Miller looked exactly like Brown. That's right. Brown's true identity was the vice president of the parent company. Her real name is Sarah Miller. She had a reason for using the alias Brown. Since her school days, she excelled in her studies and pursued a career in management without hesitation. As a professional, she quickly climbed the elite ladder, becoming the vice president of Sakura Systems and a candidate for the next president. She focused solely on growing the company. She believed her opinions, shaped by various experiences, were always correct. Ignoring her employees' voices, she didn't trust them, interfered in everything, and often yelled when displeased. This behavior earned her resentment from many and eventually led to her isolation. By the time she realized her situation, no one listened to her, and her instructions were ignored. She didn't know what to do or whom to trust. Her father, the current president, advised her to broaden her perspective. So she chose to become a cleaner at a subsidiary to gain a different viewpoint. She decided to work in another industry within the company to see the employees and the company from a different angle. Using an alias to ensure her identity remained hidden, she observed many things. People who acted arrogantly like she did, people who couldn't voice their opinions and just followed orders, people who worked hard in the given environment, people who pulled others down to advance, and people who tried to change themselves. Observing these people and environments, she realized how arrogant she had been. She began to understand how she should have been someone like James, who works hard to overcome obstacles and doesn't let his abilities make him arrogant. That's exactly what I lack. And of course, he's excellent at his job. I need him. There's no way we can let go of such talent. James, you belong here. What would you even do with the parent company? You'll just be used and discarded like a rag. Chris said to me, "A rag? You were the one treating me like that." Vice President Miller laughed and said, "Let go." Do you think you have the luxury to say that? What? You're getting fired? I found it odd that such elaborate forged documents existed just to frame a cleaner and one employee. Vice President Miller walked toward Chris, the sound of her heels echoing. So we conducted a thorough investigation. Evidence proving James's guilt never surfaced. Right, because you are the culprit. What's your evidence? There is plenty. We got the recipient of your leaked information to reveal everything. The email history is crystal clear. That's fabricated. You probably thought you'd pin it on someone else before it got discovered, and who better to target than James, who recently started getting recognition. Seeing someone you look down on achieving success must have been unbearable for someone like you. Then Vice President Miller turned a cold gaze toward the president. I also have information suggesting you're involved. I've suspected for a while that something was off. The management policies here have been completely different from what we instructed. While you were lining your pockets, things took a turn for the worse. The president's face turned pale as he clapped a hand on Chris's shoulder. This is a trap set by someone trying to frame us, right? Yeah, we wouldn't do such things, James. Tell them we're upstanding bosses and there's no wrongdoing. The evidence must be questionable anyway, right? She respects you, so if you vouch for us, all suspicions will be cleared. He whispered a threat, implying I knew what would happen if I said anything unfavorable. Everyone was watching me in this critical moment. Everyone was waiting for my words. I felt dizzy. I couldn't breathe. That's right. This is the moment I need my charm. I reached into my bag and grabbed the glasses I kept for such occasions. If I put these on, I can't tell who is who. What's wrong, James? I clenched my hand tightly. No, this would just be like before. I have to stand up for those who believed in me. I resolved this in my heart and turned to face everyone. There is evidence. I let go of the glasses and pulled out my smartphone. Emails of collusion between the president and Chris, inflated invoices, and graphs showing mismatched profits and revenue. These were the materials I had used for my reports. I had suspected something was off, but I never imagined there was illegal trading. Vice President Miller had asked me to recall past data, and I gave it to her on the day I was fired. Based on the July report from 2 years ago and last year's financial statements, there appears to be evidence of fraud. We also have testimonies from the other parties involved. The client was very angry when they found out they were part of an illegal trade without their knowledge. I said it without the glasses, looking directly at them. "Isn't it time you gave up?" The president and Chris hung their heads. Thus, their misdeeds were exposed to all the employees. Later, their fraud was reported in the news. Of course, it wasn't just a matter of being fired. The police were involved. A new leader was appointed in the company, and a shift in everyone's mindset began. Vice President Miller took charge with her strong sense of responsibility. She decided to oversee the subsidiary until it could operate independently again. As her secretary, I started a new chapter in my life. Sometimes I still called her Brown by mistake and hurriedly corrected myself. "If it's so hard to say, you can call me by my first name, you know." "Excuse me, what? That sounds too much like we're a couple." As I thought that, she winked playfully. "Of course, only when we're outside the office." So that's how it is with her. Glasses off and contact lenses in, she looks stunning. When she was hiding her identity, she kept her face covered with her hair and wore glasses to avoid being recognized. But I found her attractive in both appearances. Otherwise, I wouldn't have looked forward to our time together so much. I still carry the charm glasses in my bag, but I don't need to use them anymore. Even when I see people's faces clearly and feel their gaze, I don't get nervous. I keep the glasses as a reminder of the feeling I had when I overcame my fear. In life, there will always be setbacks and challenges, but after overcoming that situation, I feel there's nothing left to fear. I want to give others the courage that I've gained. For that, I need to become someone who can face any adversity head-on.